Hello, 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 hello. Is the final Sunday before the Tuesday of Election Day, but Election Day is not a election day, it's an election season, as we keep being told. Welcome to another episode of Sree's Daily Global Show. I'm Sree Sreenivasan. Thank you so much for being here. It's Sunday night, which is Sunday night positivity night around here, but with an asterisk. On Sundays, we try to keep things generally positive despite every rotten thing going on. We interview purposeful people who can get us ready for the week. And no week is more important than the week about to start. If you're joining us live, it's 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's 7:30 a.m. in India instead of our usual 6:30 a.m. in India because of the time difference. And we're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and LinkedIn. As we got ready for this pivotal show before the election, I wanted this to be an extra special episode, and I wanted some clarity, and I could think of no one who could help me get more clarity than Anurima Bhargava. She's at Anurima on Twitter, and she's the president of Anthem of Us. She's the vice chair of U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. She was on the 2020 DNC Platform Committee. She's the founder of Take Back Tuesdays. She's the former chief of the Educational Opportunities section of the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. And she would like to be known as the Justice Ninja. You will meet Anurima in just a minute. Hi, everyone. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't cancel your event without talking to us. We've done virtual events for 50 people and 100,000 people. We bet your event is somewhere between those two numbers, and we'd love to chat with you. This is episode 236 in 236 days. This has been an amazing ride for us, and it's all come down to these 48 hours as we think about what this election means to the fight against COVID and so much more. I'm so grateful to everyone who's joined us right now and over the last 230 days or so. We've had more than 1 million viewers, 156 million social impressions, more than 420 guests, 249 of them women from 71 cities and 20 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. We are in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in, and our archives are at youtube.com/Sreenet. We're able to do this because of our awesome producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon at Vandana Menon. Please tag your friends right now. You want to know about the elections? We've got someone who understands U.S. politics better than many, many folks, and someone who will guide us to understand what's about to happen as much as anyone can understand what is about to happen. So are you ready to meet Anurima? She's going to join us right now. We are so thrilled to have her with us. Please follow her on Twitter at Anurima, Vice Chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom and President of Anthem of Us. And yes, Ninja, Justice Ninja. Justice Ninja. I was going to say Ninja Justice, but Justice Ninja, right?
Yes. I'm very excited to be Justice Ninja, particularly for this next week. So,
yeah. All right. I know you see I'm smiling a lot, but I'm actually quivering inside with worry and pain and fear. Tell me what I should know to calm me down a little bit first.
So, first of all, I want to say happy birthday, Sree. I'm glad to be here in your birthday week. It was such a positive moment to be able to join in the birthday celebrations and to see the ways in which the community that you brought together in these moments of positivity and all throughout the week. It's been something extraordinary, and I've had times where I've just taken a break and been able to listen to some wonderful humans, and I'm really thankful and grateful for that. And so first, thank you and happy birthday. And second, I spent the day today, and I'll just describe some of what we saw, which is I spent part of my evening on People's Action with literally hundreds of people who are coming together, listening to DJs, dancing and texting at the same time. And I was on a Zoom earlier that was trying to really figure out how we can make sure that people in Pennsylvania who are getting their ballots in, millions have done that, and to make sure that those ballots, if there are any issues with them, that they can actually have a chance to cure that on Tuesday, on Election Day. And there were so many people who wanted to join and try and help from around the country that the first training, people couldn't even get onto it. And the second training, they had to expand capacity. And I think I was on with about 950 people this afternoon. And so those are the things that are really, I think, the kind of energy that we're seeing from people around the country to make sure that we have a free and fair election. I've said a number of times that if someone told me that this election was going to be fair and there wouldn't be a whole bunch of efforts to suppress votes, I would have taken a nap a month ago and been writing bad poetry the rest of this month. And so it's really right now, the question is, how do we come together and make sure that the efforts to try and keep us from exercising our right to vote, our right to participate in democracy, that we collectively come back and say, this is what we're going to make sure we're able to do together. So we're seeing that. There's lots of examples of it in small ways and in big ways across the country, and that's what's giving me some positive light today.
Terrific. I'm so glad to hear that, and it makes me feel better already. I do want to note for a few folks who have PTSD, as I do, from 2016, that at this moment, 48 hours before the election, Hillary Clinton was up by 4 points. This morning, the same poll, the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, Biden's up by 10 points. So if there is any, if in fact there is any change that happens between now and then, it will have to happen in the next 48 hours. And no president or no candidate has won when they no candidate has lost, when they've had a 10-point lead like this in the last many election cycles. So these are things that give us hope. But let's take a step back and let me ask you, first of all, how are you, where are you, and how have you been handling the pandemic and your family and everyone? Yeah.
Sure. I'm in Chicago, which is where I was born and raised. I'm on the south side of Chicago, and I grew up in an area where right now it is the zip code that has had the highest number of COVID cases in the beginning of the pandemic, where we see the highest number of evictions in the state of Illinois. So it's a place that is largely African American, that has had 80% youth unemployment and in this time, and so it's definitely a place where we see what the impact of COVID has been on communities, and for me, it's a daily reminder that in even when we're thinking about all of what's going on in this election and all the politics and all of that, that what's happening right now is for so many a question of survival, a question of how they get to the next day, and so that's what I've been sitting with at the same time that I'm trying to do whatever I can to bring about, a chance that we could have people who are really dedicated to saving lives, to the dignity and respect that people should be accorded, and how do we actually have that be the norms and standards that are coming from our leadership, but also, something that we can practice around the country instead of a lot of what we're seeing right now. In terms of my family, I do everything I can to be able to go home as much as I can. And so I see my parents quite a bit, and they're pretty extraordinary people. My dad just did an improv show on Friday night. He's taken to be an improv actor in these years, and a singer. And my mom is, literally sat down and has done everything from write postcards to make sure that I and everyone around me is well taken care of, and is teaching and engaging, and they are what keep me going and inspired to keep getting up and being part of a beautiful garden which they've created on the south side of Chicago, which is something that brings us all a lot of joy and color and richness. So it's been good to be able to be with them, and doing everything I can to make sure the COVID does not get to them. So that's the most important part.
And of course, we all have to stay very safe, especially as the holidays come by and Thanksgiving and all of that, something that everyone has to think of. If I may, I cannot think of your family without also mentioning your late great brother, Prashant, who wonderful talent we lost now 5 years ago, I believe.
Yes,
and,
in 2015.
And I can't imagine what he would be thinking of this era and this moment. I'm sure you think of him in this context as well, and how he would have used his art to participate and have some attention brought to topics that he really cared about.
And I have to say that my parents and I made a decision just a couple weeks ago that we wanted to share a journey that we had, that we felt like we had in common with Vice President Joe Biden. And I know it's a video that many people have seen, and I will end up sharing it out in the feeds right now. But it's a video just about the fact that what it feels like to have lost, in my case, a brother, and in my parents' case, a son, at the same time that Vice President Joe Biden had lost his son, and to the ways in which our journeys intersected. And I think in many ways that video is what I think this whole thing is about, right? Which is how do we find common journeys? How do we find hope? How do we find the shared promise in one another? And so that's the way in which I think we're honoring not only my brother, but the kind of ways in which we've tried to build community, and he certainly tried to do that in his work as well. So I hope people have a chance to watch the video. And if you watch it in the next 2 days, it'll apparently require some Kleenexes, but it's something that I think will give you a sense of what we can feel if we weren't in the middle of anxiety and fear, how we could feel something different for one another.
Well, it's a beautiful video, and if it's okay, we'll play some of it now.
Sure.
All right, here we go. We won't play the whole thing. We'll play a couple of minutes of it, and then you want to just set it up for us. How did this become something that so many people have ended up seeing?
I think we just put it out there and it resonated, and it's resonating even in the heartland. John Krakauer, the author, posted it on his Instagram, and it's just been extraordinary to see people's responses. It was not something that we anticipated. We just wanted to put out a story, and our story, and something else happened. So I think it just tells you what we're starved for at the moment.
Sure. So let's play this here.
In May of 2015, my brother Prashant passed away. And a few weeks later, Beau Biden passed away. And in that time of grief, where we didn't know where to look for someone who was grieving a brother, grieving a son, I can't really begin to express what it felt like to have some place where a leader of our country was grieving so openly. We had this thing in common, which was that we were all, for the next couple of years, in a time of grief. And in 2017, 2 years later, it was my parents' 50th anniversary. And turns out that Vice President Biden had finished writing Promise Me Dad and was on his book tour. And that book tour just happened to come to Chicago, to the South Side, where we had lived for 4 decades, on the very night of my parents' anniversary. So I wrote and asked if there was any chance we could join the line backstage. And we did.
And it was that long journey to the backstage that you kept thinking about him, but kept thinking about your own son and his son. And when I reached, I said to him, I lost my son 2 weeks before Beau died. And he looked at me and he said, it was a very hard journey, nothing can change, nothing can bring them back. I said yes, and then he gave me a hug. But more than that, that warmth that he extended was so comforting. When he went on stage, when he was asked why did he write his book, and he said, backstage I met a couple who had lost their 42-year-old son. It is for people like them that this book has been written. It's our feelings, it's our thoughts, and our ways of grieving.
I don't remember that much getting up to him. And all he did was put his arm around my waist. He didn't have to say anything. Because you look into a father's eye who had the same experience you had. And in his eyes I could see pain, hope, and that was most comforting to me. Because when our son died, we had no time. At 6:59, he was alive. 5 minutes later, he was dead. And we had no time to prepare for that. And therefore, to think about hope, to think about going on with life, you have to find someone. And there are leaders. And there are people who go through this kind of journey with you. But some journeys are special. When you have people like Mr. Biden look into your eyes. One more time.
Just an amazing video, and so brave and special that your family would share that with all of us.
Yeah.
I just tweeted it out again. So if anybody wants to find it, can find it on my feed. It's also on Anurima's feed as well, at ANURIMA. It must have been so difficult to make this video and to think about this and do this at this moment.
It wasn't actually hard, because it was one of those things where I think we just saw the ways in which there's so much noise, and there's so much the ways in which this has become about division and fear, and we wanted to tell a different story and to share that. And I think the ability to be able to do that is actually something that was quite easy. I think putting something out to the world and thinking that anyone wants to hear it or to watch it or to listen to it, I think that was what took a little bit longer for all of us to realize that it was actually resonating, and so to actually affirmatively put it out. But I think in some ways it was for us cathartic, meditative, to be able to do and to feel again that sense of connection with someone who who is fundamentally decent, right, and fundamentally kind. And that is if that was where we got to in politics and nothing else right now, I think we would be so far ahead of where we are right now.
And that is certainly a big contrast with the current incumbent of the White House, to see this kind of decency, and no one will ever say anything about Joe Biden in that sense of how he connects with people, and how much he loved his son as well. So we're thinking of Prashanth tonight, and thank you for sharing that part of this of the story. And we lost him much too young, and we think of him. I'm just going to show you some of our comments that are coming in from people all over the world. Jonathan's watching from the East Village, where he's watched 236 episodes in a row.
Thank you, Jonathan, for being here. And I like the Halloween costume.
Yeah, this is, he's in the East Village. I wanted to ask you a memory of the East Village or New York City now that you're stuck in Chicago.
Oh my God. I mean, I had so many years in New York, and I spent the last 2 summers in New York, living in the West Village, not in the East Village, but close enough, and where I could like have salons and pretend like I was, in a different time. And I mean, the amount of ridiculousness that I've gotten myself into in New York over the years, with many of our people who are probably on this call and common friends. I think the energy of it, I think the resilience, I think the ways in which people show up in the craziest and most wonderful of ways for one another. That's what I miss about New York right now. I obviously miss the ways in which we would feed each other from our own hands, the ways that we would, that we would just meet and sit in a park and try and take in the energy. Those are the things that I think I'm desperately missing about New York, and obviously the community of it as well. And the ways in which trying to understand this time, where you can have the kindness of strangers in New York, even if they're outwardly brusque, and you still know they're kind of curious. And so I would love to see that again, right? The sort of ability to look someone in the eye and realize, like, there's gonna be a story here, and it's gonna be fun to just see how the adventure unfolds. Or to have a piano in the middle of a park with someone standing on top of it singing opera. I mean, these are all the things that we can miss in these days. So we will get back there. We will get back there, and we will get back there in a way that I think we will realize how extraordinary it is to have that kind of community and that kind of joy, and thousands of people standing together. And I can't wait for it. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I just want to, one of the things I want to say is that I also miss Chicago a lot. I go to Chicago at least twice a year, and more in the summer, I got to say, than the winter months. But, I would certainly miss Chicago. Let's see, my mom is watching from Kerala in India. Have you been to Kerala?
I have been to Kerala. I've been a couple of times. I have an extraordinary story of going to, the first time I went to Kerala was in 1996. Or maybe early 1997. And I went, and I ended up in this extraordinary story of, I ended up somehow in Arundhati Roy's mom's house, because one of my friends was working at a camp that she or teaching in a camp with her. And so it was right after God of Small Things had come out. And so we got to have this incredible conversation about her mom's take on the book, which I still remember, and then got to wander and really explore different parts of Kerala. And I've come back a number of times since to be able to go to weddings and to celebrations. And so it's a place that I certainly think lives up to its name of being God's own country, and a place that I saw, just such extraordinary beauty, and as a Northerner, has called to me so many times. And so I think the movements for how do we actually treat everyone, including women, with dignity, and allow for space for people to grow and to thrive, and to have that be something that's so worn into the fabric of a place. That's how I dream of Kerala, and that's how I have experienced it.
Great, thank you. I did not know that, so that's great to know. And Ashok says, welcome to Kerala again after the crisis is over. And Monica is saying hello and happy birthday to me. Jonathan says, the buskers of New York are unusual. So he's referring to some of the musicians you were talking about. And Rick says, very moving and empathetic story about your family meeting the Bidens. And
Rick, if you get to the second half, that's the tearjerker part. You got the setup, and now you got to watch the rest, and you get to take out a Kleenex for the other.
I was already crying. I didn't even need to get to the second part the first time I saw it to feel so sad. Winfred says hello. Miriam's watching from Hell's Kitchen. I hope Anurima's family stays safe. And Mohammed is giving you a thumbs up. Steve's saying hello from Philadelphia, and it's all coming down to Pennsylvania, they say this time. And I know I'm taking you away from doing some vote banking.
No. I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy to be with folks, including from those in Philadelphia, because it is essentially ground zero for so much of what we're seeing, including the ways in which for every step forward, I feel like we're getting pushed back in terms of why is it so hard for us just to allow people the ability to exercise their right to vote and to do so safely, right? This should not, just to try and get through an hour to explain the ways in which someone could cure their ballot, and they have to go in and do this type of ballot. It's changed yesterday. I mean, it's just extraordinary to me that we're making this hard, and it's not surprising. And I say extraordinary not because it's surprising. It is part of the long history of the ways in which we suppress votes in this country. But it is just it's heartbreaking to see how, in particular, how this energy of this time, of the ways in which people are engaging in ways that we have never seen before. And even in the time of COVID, we're seeing this. It's just, the idea that we would want to make people have to put their lives at risk to be able to go vote is just not something that we should continue to see in this country. And I hope we have a chance to do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And we're looking at this editorial in today's New York Times that says, why are Republicans so afraid of voters? There's no both sides do it. When it comes to intentionally keeping Americans away from the polls, it is known that if Republicans let everyone vote, that they will not be in power. And so they are doing all they can. No other country that's a true democracy has this level of one party going after the right to vote. And it is horrifying to see and to understand the extent of this. What is your message to people in North Carolina, Michigan, and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania about why they need to go to the polls and they need to vote and support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris?
I'm going to go back to the really simple one, which is, this is who we are. This is who you are, which is, we are part of a national community that cares about each other, that wants to make sure that we treat each other with decency and with kindness and with compassion, that wants to see a time in which people are facing such extraordinary challenges that we can come out of it by using common sense and science and logic and move forward in a way that isn't putting the health and well-being of so many at peril. And it's our time to come forward and say, we're gonna make sure that this country moves forward in a really different way, and that we're gonna reclaim the values that we've all embodied and brought and shared from the foundation of this country in some ways, and have evolved over time to really embody, and that includes to the respect for people's dignity and a sense of belonging, which in so many ways the pandemics of COVID and of systemic racism and white supremacy have broken our bones and the very fibers of what kept this country together. And it's our time to build back the connective tissue. And going to go vote is saying, yeah, you know what, we've seen the social and economic and political x-ray of what's going on in America, and we're ready to make sure that we can get healthy again, and not only individually as a country. And I think that's why we need to go vote, is to make sure that not only for us but for all of those who who don't have a chance to voice what it is that this time has meant, the 230,000 plus that we have lost, the many that we have lost to police violence, the many that we've lost to so much brutality and things that we could have fixed. And so I think it's for all of them that we go out and vote.
Thank you for putting that so clearly. I don't think anyone can have any doubts about what's at stake. Chavi says, hi, Anu. Love that video with your parents. Must have watched it a handful of times. Love and miss Prashant.
Thanks, Chavi. Keep going.
Laurie says, agree with Anurima that the joy will return. And Monica says, great talk, so insightful, Anurima. Your accomplishments are so inspirational. And Steve says, I was so glad to see the email confirmation that my dropped off ballot was received. And Rick is talking about healing the soul of America means facing up to the deepest inequities of our society. Quote from the DNC 2020 platform. That's certainly one of the aspects of the platform. You were on the committee. Can you talk about how the committee's formed and what your role in it was? And there's been some controversy about what is the platform versus what is the Biden plan versus anything else. Can you talk about that, please?
Sure. I think so the platform committee came together. There's a couple different ways in which people got on it. I was one of about 20 or so people who were appointed by the chair of the DNC, Tom Perez, to sit on the platform committee. And then there are many people who are sort of coming out of the states who are delegates to the DNC who ended up in also being part of the platform committee. So there's about, I think, 150 of us, or maybe a little bit more than that, who were part of the platform committee. And in many ways, I think we saw this year that there was a process before it got to the platform of Bernie and Biden really sitting down and trying to find a way to unify on a number of different policy issues, and that's the draft that came to the DNC platform committee with practically no time, right? We had very little time to look at it. We had very little time to sort of put input into it. And then there was a lot flying around the time of the vote. It's something that it's an experience that I've never had before of really trying to really sort of spend my time focused on the things that I know, which are I know better than others, which are things like civil rights and education, what's going on with our children, and then issues around, sort of international religious freedom and things that I've been working on. But what I will say is that I think there's, it was the part of the tug of war around it was, this feeling that like it's important for something to be in the DNC platform, the party platform, and then at the same time, like, this is, what is the import of this document? What is the import of the party platform in this moment? And I think in some ways, that's the debate that continues, which is, just to use the quote that was there's a lot that's aspirational in it that hasn't yet been figured out, right? And so I think we should be, this is a document that I think is part of a larger plan. It certainly is. There's so much that's going to need to be pushed and worked out, and there are many things that I think are important for us to that healthcare is a right, that we figure out how that actually manifests, that are things that are really complicated, and we've got to figure out how they play. And this was not the document to do it in. I think that was that was something that was really hard for everybody who was involved, but also hard for America to be like, we really want to see a new platform, a new set of ideas, a new stand, and we want someone to put a stake in the ground on what it is that we need to actually move to, and I think that's there's the aspirations in here. There's a lot of work to go on what that's going to actually mean, and so the experience was one that was like fascinating in many ways, and even for me, something where like it was, you want to make sure that you get this feeling like, is this our chance? And what we have to realize is like, this is one of a chance that we're going to get, hopefully, if we can do what we need to do in the next couple of days, and get out and vote and do everything, that we're going to have a chance to really be able to do every day. And that we have a chance to really sort of try to transform around so many things that have been destroyed. Things that I spent a lot of time on in the administration around making sure our schools were places that were open and educational opportunities for all kids, that they could go and feel safe and not be bullied and harassed, or that, because of their LGBTQ status or because of their race or because of their religion, so much of that just, or that they don't get sexually assaulted, all that just got dismantled so quickly in this past administration. Things that we worked on for years got dismantled in 5 minutes with nothing to replace them. And so we have a lot of work to do to again, build back the tissue, build back a foundation of what it is that we're going to need. But most importantly, the sense of what we're missing right now is not necessarily just these policies and practices and the things that are in a party platform, but it's really this sense of what are our norms and standards? What's the ways in which we have leadership that's not only sort of, this leadership's not even a legal check. It's like, breaking laws left and right. But what would it mean to actually not just have a legal check, but a moral check on how we're treating each other and how we're putting into place and giving life to the rights that are in here. And so that's something that I think we all need to do together. And I hope that the energy that we're seeing, in the Sunrise Movement on the environment from youth, there's so many people who are reflected in this. I hope all of those kinds of energies are reflected in the work that gets done in the next couple of months. And, that young people, including, our own children, Sree, that are really thinking about things like, what does it mean to open up and have schools where as many of our youth and children can belong and thrive and have opportunity. What does that look like now? And how is that better than even what we've seen in the last 10 years, in the last 40 years? That's what we need to imagine and to have. And so this platform is one step in that direction. There's certainly a lot of work to do.
And I'd love for people, obviously, to take a look at it and understand it. Is there, I don't know if you can read this at this point size, but if someone was going to look for your fingerprints, where are they looking? Give us a couple of areas, if you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, there are places that I have like little fingerprints, and then the place where I think I put my whole hand on a page. So the parts that I think are really, it's a little bit further down, I think, than where you are. If you go into the space of this, there's some in criminal justice certainly, and in that area that you're just in about advancing rights, and then as you keep going down and get into the providing a world-class education in every zip code, that's where you might see some handprints. So as opposed to some fingerprints.
Yeah, well, this is amazing. Are there things that you wish if you had more? Was it a function of time, or is it political will that there are things missing here, or not worded exactly the way you would have liked?
Oh, I mean, there's very little that's where I think any of us would have ideally wanted it to be. I don't think anyone will tell you that this is like, no, this was not anyone's perfect document. It's not even close. I think there's time. I think there's so many different interests. I think there's ways in which, again, this is a document that's trying to reflect, but not to pinpoint exactly where we're going in many ways. And so I think of it as in some ways as the floor, as a foundation, but not necessarily as a cap of where we're going. And so again, we have to build from it. We have to build from there, but we have to do that. I hope with all of the kind of energy that has been waiting. And one of the things I'll say, I think is really important. One of the things that was hard being in the Obama administration that I don't think we did as well on is that, that a lot of people look to the federal government to fix problems. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what's the ways in which, those problems are being fixed at local and state levels in many different ways. Some of the most extraordinary learning I've had in the last couple of years has come from the fact that I've been in programs like the Presidential Leadership Scholars, where I'm like around a lot of people who think very differently than I do politically, and are doing a lot of work in local communities, right? And I had come as one of the folks who'd come out of DC and been working in the federal government, but I've gotten, in that, and I'm in another program with a lot of people who've been government leaders on the local and the state levels. I think there's a lot to be said for lifting up a lot of what we're seeing that's working to fix issues around the country. And while I am invested with every fiber of my being in making sure that we have a different federal government, particularly a different Senate, because even with the presidency, the Senate has been, if I think about my deepest anger and disappointment, it is really in the Senate in so many ways. And I'm happy to talk about, what I think we need to be able to do in the next couple of days there. But I think in many ways, like, we have to really think about the ways in which we reflect what's happening in community at the national and federal level. And I hope the energy goes that way. It doesn't mean that we drain out what's going on in the state and local level, but I hope that the energy in the federal government reflects out all of what's happening across the country. And then it doesn't become another situation in which people are looking to the federal government to solve their issues, but rather for the federal government to facilitate the fixing of problems in the best way that they can be fixed, including at the local level.
And this is why a newsletter today said there's a lot more on the ballot than just the presidency. Down ballot races matter and could affect your life as much as who's in the White House, if not even more than that. Though I can't get past the White House, so that's so I was trying to make the point that it's important for us to pay attention to the rest of this as well. And folks, if you're not subscribing to my newsletter, please get it. sreenet.substack.com. sreenet.substack.com. Let's talk a little bit, if we can, one last thing about the DNC platform. Where does the separation come from the platform and and the Biden-Harris ticket. How does that work? Do they go over and look through what was turned in as a platform, or how does that? What can you share with us about that?
So I don't actually know how much the campaign and the Biden plan really look to the platform. I think there's obviously a lot of alignment there. There are people who are working on the Biden plan who were part of the process from the Unity Committee, and certainly some of the same people who have been part of the process of coming up with the platform itself. And so there's alignment there on a number of different things. I do think that that in the context of a campaign, there's a number of things that reflect the candidates and reflect what it is that they think it's important to win the election and to resonate, that they're going to resonate. And obviously in this time, things are changing every day. And there's ways in which the plan for America has to account for where we are, right? Which is, at a time where we have dozens of states that are having the highest level of COVID cases that they've had ever, right? And so that's, or any one of the other shenanigans that we're trying to deal with on a daily level. I mean, daily basis, whether it be the desecration of the very notion of the Justice Department, whether it be what's happening in the Supreme Court, whether it be, the ways in which we're going to see, attacks on fundamental things like healthcare through the Supreme Court, that we couldn't have accounted for 2 months ago. And so I think a lot of this is evolving. That's why I'm saying I think it's in many ways just these are a document itself is one that we have to give life to, and we have to give meaning to for the context of what problems right now are we trying to fix. And that's really the thing that I think we're going to have to address when we come in here, which is, it may not be that we have, we're going to walk into a federal government that the very institutions of which have been destroyed, and in many ways, and I think it gives an opportunity to imagine, to reimagine, and to think differently about what we need. For me, thinking about mental health and thinking about trauma and thinking about that in particular for children, for those who are in really vulnerable communities in a lot of ways, those are the kinds of things that I think we need to bring in that shouldn't be brought in as a conversation around is policing the way to go. It should be brought in because that is what America actually needs to be able to to thrive and survive in these times. And so those are I hope those are the kinds of things that we have real, serious conversations about, not as a trade-off, but as a necessary investment in making sure that we don't end up where we've ended up, which is where people are feeling isolated, where they're feeling lonely, where they're feeling insecure, where they're trying to deal with trauma and their own health, and they're ending up in places of hate and of divide and of violence and of addiction. That's not the way in which we just can't continue this way. And so I think we really have to think differently about where we're going to invest as we go forward. And frankly, that's gonna need to be, again, not just in the presidency, but in the Senate and in Congress, and in really thinking about the fundamental thing that bothers me about where we are right now is I'm all for us living in a representative democracy. If you're really truly representing the people in your district and what they need, and you disagree with me, that is what a democracy is about. But right now, what we have is so much noise and so much disinformation and so much money and so many interests that are not about the people that those who are elected represent, that I think we've lost sight of this idea of like, how do we actually fix their problems? And if you can't look in the camera and address the American people when you're asked a question about how you would actually address the American people in this time, it tells you a little bit about where we need to get to get out of this. And so I think that's what I've been thinking about a lot as we go into this week. And I do think this idea of not underestimating the American people and not underestimating look, I went to Alabama in 2017, and all the newspapers were saying, like, I went to a Walmart and 6 out of 10 Black people didn't know there was an election. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go to that town and see what's going on and go knock on some doors. And I wandered around, and every single person I found, including people who were sitting in a pickup truck dealing, they knew there was an election, right? And they knew everything about that election. And I had a lot of people who looked at me and said, no one has knocked on my door in 40 years during a political process. And I think in many ways, they knew exactly who was going to vote, when they were going to vote, how they were going to get there, and they were going to make sure they got there. And that is where I'm putting my hope right now, which is that we underestimate the fact that like there are, you know, the way in which Tip O'Neill told us, all politics is local. This is going to happen, you know, in communities and on streets, and in many ways that all of us who are doing everything we can to try and support and help, that's where this gets done. And we're here just to do what we can to make sure that those who are getting it done, you know, don't get driven off the road or pepper sprayed or whatever else, because that's what we should make sure they at least have a chance to be able to go vote in the way that they should be. And that means people with disabilities and those who were trying to be safe during COVID. The idea that we would take votes, hundreds of thousands of votes away. And I hope that a judge in Texas tomorrow, a federal judge, does not go against the own Texas Supreme Court and the 120,000 people who went out and voted and tried to do so safely, and doesn't say, I'm going to take away those votes because somehow or another I have some ridiculous idea of how it is and who it is that should make decisions about how to keep people safe when the county was trying to do just that.
Oh, there's so many great ideas in what you just shared, and thank you. And we saw pepper spraying yesterday in North Carolina, and today Black Lives Matter protest in New York City. The NYPD, you could see instigating trouble for the very peaceful protesters who were just attacked on camera, that you could see, and just horrifying. We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, sorry. At the same time, just want to say this. At the same time that there are people who are literally shutting down Garden State Parkway and nothing is happening to them. Or they drive off a campaign bus and somehow the president says, you know, this is a good thing. I mean, these are
saying they were keeping so for those who missed it, a Biden bus in Texas was surrounded and intimidated and almost run off the road by Trump supporters with Trump flags. And the president said, oh, they were keeping the Biden bus safe. Yeah, that sounds like something the mafia would say, and just completely unacceptable. We only have a few minutes left with Anurima because we know she has important work to do. Folks, if you have a question, this is a chance to talk to an insider who understands the political process, but also understands the importance of helping people who are outside the system and who need and deserve the help that they can get. So it's a rare combination in Anurima, and we're so glad that we can spend time with her. I want to ask you about your organization. You're the president of Anthem of Us. Please tell us about it.
Sure. I think that most people don't realize I actually have a day job these days. And so my day job is that if anyone wants to help me with my website, I'll take offers, because and Sree, many of your offers to actually make this work properly. But basically, here's the crux of it, which is that I think in many ways we haven't we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years, whether it be with Me Too, whether it be on racial justice, really focused on the moments of violence and not what leads up to them and what comes after them. And so one of the things that was really important when we did investigations was you figure out what happened, you hold people accountable, and then you prevent it from occurring again, right? And we don't really have a lot of that work going on. And so what I've been doing is working with places like the MacArthur Foundation in Chicago, working with a number of media and arts organizations, working with like civil rights and human rights organizations too, about how it is that they actually embed justice and equity among their own staff in their own work, so that they can be better prepared and better equipped as a community, both for individuals as a community and as an institution themselves, to be able to go and do the work that they are out here in the world doing. And we've seen a lot of, after George Floyd's murder, we've seen a lot in terms of performative acts. We've seen a lot of people donating money, some people donating lots of money. We've seen a lot of people say we're going to hire a diversity officer or diversity task force. And then we've seen, folks who really sort of spending the time to invest in what is going to be a longer term process of sustaining justice and equity and belonging within their own spaces and in the work that they're doing. And that's what we've been doing with Anthem of Us, and doing that in conjunction with, a number of other partners out here. And it's been, it's been really important in this time. It's been hard, really hard work. But I do feel like the ripple effects in terms of who in the community ends up being engaged in this is really important right now. And so that's Anthem, and then I get to do a lot of work with the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which is a fascinating group of individuals who are commissioners with me, and we're doing work around the world, and I think it's been a journey to do this work with my fellow commissioners, and so that's what's taking up a lot of my time, along with the political work.
Tell us a little bit about the commission and how do people get selected to it, and it must be fascinating but difficult work.
Yeah, I mean, so the commissioners are a bipartisan group of commissioners that are appointed by the president and leaders of Congress. I was appointed by Speaker Nancy Pelosi in December of 2018. And we are very, very different people. And there are people who are commissioners with me who have spent their lives literally trying to destroy everything I have spent my life trying to build. And so what has been fascinating is the ways in which, there are people who wouldn't imagine, as you see on the screen, that I'd be sitting.
I remember seeing, can I just say, when I saw Tony Perkins and Anurima Bhargava on the same page, let alone in the same room, I was horrified.
Yes, well, so that's the reaction of many, and I think in many ways, what I've actually been able to find in the commission is that Tony and I, we traveled to Sudan in February together. We have worked on many things in conjunction with one another, and I've learned the ways in which I don't subscribe to any of his feeds, but I certainly think there's a lot of ways in which we can find some common ground. Last September, one of the things that struck me and him was that we had a conversation about family separation and what was going on the border, and we have very different understandings of what was going on and very different information. And so I suggested to him that maybe the two of us should go to the border and see it together and see it ourselves, and maybe that would if we saw the same things, that we had some understanding, maybe we could start to move things differently. Because I was, the idea of the immigration detention complex and the ways in which money is fueling what we are doing to families, and the ways in which that's been privatized. I mean, and how that feels and what that looks like. So we actually went down there, without not as part of the commission, but just to try and understand how to get out of the ways in which information is being fed to us and misinformation is being fed to us, and the hoopla, to see what it is that we could actually try and come together on. And I think that's the kind of thing that is good about the commission. I think right now it's a difficult time because I have fellow commissioners who are in a very different stead on how they think about this election and what values are being upheld or not. And so it's something that it's a constant process. But for me, being able to work and uphold what's going on with and to shine a light on what's going on with the Rohingya, what's going on with the Uyghurs, what may be happening throughout South Asia in terms of in India and elsewhere, where we see some of the same kind of beginnings and seeds of concerns that we've seen in some of the surrounding countries. Those are things that it has been really important for us to work on together, and I think and to be able to shine that light, and so that's where in the last year I've gone to Iraq, Vietnam, Sudan, and to Burma and Bangladesh, to the Rohingya camps, and then met with people and the leaders of countries around the world on how it is that we actually try and create some space for religious communities to be able to live together in some kind of peace. And so that has been the work of the commission, and I think I've learned a lot personally working with these commissioners, and also a lot about what's going on around the world. And it's something that, having spent a lot of my last decade or so, or 2 decades working a lot on domestic civil rights, it's been important to be able to engage in the world in that way right now.
Thank you. And I see that even Gary Bowers is a fellow.
Well, that's a very different story, which I will not share on this feed. But I will say that it might have started with a statement of the very first moment of, I think I'm just going to call you Commissioner because I can't pronounce your name. And if you know, as Sree knows me, it didn't go over that well. So I basically made sure that within the next 24 hours there was a out loud pronunciation of my name correctly. So one last thing, Sree, for those of you who, I also do a lot of documentary film work, and so I just want to put in a plug. I have a docuseries on HBO, The Vow. It just ended the first season. You guys should watch it when you have time. Not in the next 2 days. Go work on the election. But The Vow is about NXIVM, which is taking up a lot of been a subject of a lot of conversation in New York in particular, but around the country. So please go watch The Vow, where I got to spend a lot of time with friends and otherwise. And I also spent a lot of my time with an organization called Doc Society, where I chair the board, which is it's like my happy place, because it's the place that we do work on social justice and civil rights, and do that through the way in which that intersects with documentary film. And there are so many extraordinary ways in which how we advance the work that we're all in needs to come through documentary, through culture, through movements, and that Doc Society and a lot of the work that we do there gets me to have a chance to do that. So those are that's my love, happy place, is being able to do some of this work in film and social justice together these days.
Well, that's extraordinary. I wasn't even familiar with that work, and obviously The Vow has gotten so many kudos and lots of attention, and the gentleman who's the villain of the piece has just been sentenced to some
120 years.
Yeah, 120 years, something like that, right? So I just saw that. Before we let you go, I want to talk about a fellow South Asian lawyer who has been in the news lately because she is now running to be Vice President of the United States. I want you to talk for a minute about Kamala Harris and what it means to have her on the ticket and your take on her.
So I've had a chance to spend some time with Kamala Harris and her sister Maya Harris, who's been a civil rights lawyer, and Maya's husband Tony West was in the Justice Department with us as the Associate Attorney General, and her niece Mina has been, has also been a lawyer who's been in the space. So there's a way in which this moment of having those who have really been part of an effort to make sure that Black and Brown communities are represented and voiced, but also just to have someone who, I was coming out of a conversation with a number of interfaith leaders earlier today, and we were talking about the table, and people trying to get an invitation to the table, and what we're seeing with the squad, which are the four congresswomen who, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. And I think what we're seeing in part right now is the ways in which people are setting their own tables, and being the ones who can, instead of us this conversation being about how do we actually make something more diverse, it's how do we actually set our own tables, how do we actually set our own menus, how do we actually be the ones who are inviting people to those tables, and to have those who've been a part of this community who are strong, extraordinary Indian and Black women who are rooted in a sense of tradition, rooted in a sense of family. I mean, that comes through so much with Kamala and with their entire family about how much that is who they are. And to me, again, I'm back to the same thing, which is let's go back to Joe Biden, let's go back to Kamala Harris. What we know about being in your parents are on. My parents are going to scream at me for days for not having given them more heads up that I was going to be on, because they would want to be here. Maybe they are. I don't even know. But I'm just saying, we are telling our stories. Our stories are of our families. You just watched that in my video, right? And in some ways, I want that we have people who are running for office whose stories are rooted in their families, that are stories that are rooted in generations, that they're carrying those on, and that there's that sense of you are part of our family, And that's going to be what the message is for people around the country. Again, no matter where they are and what their background is, that's something that I think is just so marvelous to see, and to see the fierceness and the side eye and the ways in which people are handling it, and to be able to join in and say, my name is, along with everybody else. It's important, and it means something. And I don't even, honestly, Sree, like, there's a part of me that I haven't really stopped to take in the momentousness of the time, both in terms of what's moving in terms of someone like Kamala Harris, but also in terms of the grief. And in part because, like, I felt like if I stopped to take it in, I would be in a hole that I don't know if I would get out of right now. I like many people, have lost, people who are so dear to me in the last couple of months. And it's just, so it's for all of that. And that I think we look to what this means. And I hope that we're not going to be in chaos in the next couple of days. I hope that we have a chance to sit with and finally feel the momentousness of what it is that is happening, and to understand what it means to have something sort of not only change in a way that we can actually see, right, but change in a way that we can actually feel and be grounded into. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
We're almost out of time, and I want to give Anu a moment to think of some final thoughts for us, especially to be positive. And I want to know her secret. Look at all the things she does, and an incredible array of important public-facing work. How does she keep that positive energy despite the pain that she herself has gone through, her family's gone through? So I'm going to come back to her in just a minute. A reminder to everyone that please follow her on social media. She is at Anurima on Twitter, and you can find her and follow her, please. And I'm just going to come back to her in just a minute. A reminder that this morning we had our Sunday New York Times read-along, celebrating 5 years of reading the Sunday New York Times newspaper out loud. And today our guest was longtime editor of New York Times, Jim Roberts, who ran the 2000 and 2004 coverage for the New York Times. He's now the publisher and chief strategy officer of the 74. So that was this morning. We also had our terrific series, She's on Call, 2 female surgeons talking about COVID and so much more. And we want to invite you back, everyone, for tomorrow night. We are going to be talking about the elections on this show at 9 p.m. Eastern with one of the best-known lawyers in D.C., Robert Barnett, who has represented a wide variety of political and media figures, including Barack Obama, Hillary and Bill Clinton, Ann Curry, Wolf Blitzer, among others. And he served as practice debate opponent for many Democratic presidential and vice presidential candidates. And he first got his start doing politics when he worked for the Jimmy Carter campaign back in 1976. So that's tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. in India. Please join us. And then we're at the election. So now we're going to go back to our guest for tonight, Anurima Bhargava, Vice Chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, President of AnthemofUs.com. Please check out their amazing services. And the former Chief of the Educational Opportunities Section of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. We're going to ask her for her final thoughts and a little bit of some advice on how to stay positive. Over to you, Anu.
I will just remember that that in the times of challenge and the times of grief, when I felt the most of that, I've also felt the most love. And for all of the work and all of the titles, the things that are that matter when we're sitting here in these moments are the little things. It's and I learned by realizing what it is that the impact of different people in my life had, that those impacts don't come from the titles, and they don't come from all of the work we're doing. They're coming from showing up, and they come from the small ways in which we reach out to one another and we support each other. And my day-to-day, the most important parts of it were checking in on those who had lost someone, checking in on someone who was having a really difficult anniversary, and then the really amazing moments where I had one of my former colleagues send me pictures of her dressed up, her and her son dressed up in 30 Rock gear in honor of Malik Pantoli, and getting a response for him that was so excited about what that meant for him to have that kind of people looking towards him. And so those are the parts of my day that I think keep us positive, is that we're here for each other, and we're finding the ways in which we show little and in huge ways love. And I think, just to go back to that video for 1 second, I've gotten so much more back by putting that out there than I could have ever, that ever took to put it out, and that's come from 94-year-old grandmothers of friends, and it's come from places all over the country that I couldn't have imagined. And so I think for us to be open and vulnerable, and to start with love and care, that's the way to stay positive, and it's the way that we, again, will fill up our well when it feels empty, which it so often does these days. And so, with that, Sree, you have practiced that in so many ways for all of us, and I'm just grateful to be able to be on here with you and have a chance to do some of that. And I hope people reach out if there's any ways in which I can be helpful in the next couple of days, other than trying to give you like 800 things to do that we need.
People are asking what can they do. So just very quickly, what can they do?
I know it's hard right now. Your phone, you're calling people and texting people, and it feels like you're not getting through. But this is if 1,000 of us do it and we get 2 people, that's what makes this difference. A place like Michigan, 2 votes in every precinct. That was all it took, right? We're talking about 10,000 votes, and so I know it's like you're sitting there and you're like, everyone asks me, what's the best thing for me to do right now? And all my answer is, let's just do something. Right. And do it in one of these places. Just do something. I will tell you, I spent every day phone banking and text banking too. It's not like there's some magic, crazy, super powerful, special thing that any of us get to do. We are doing the same thing, which is to knock on doors, to do the things that we know we can do. And so if you can get out there to Pennsylvania to go knock on doors, please do. I know that not everyone's able to or feel safe. But then, there are so many other things, and just, get out there and do it. And on election day, we're going to have DJ Reka, our dear friend. She's going to DJ all day on Twitch, and we're going to have it be part of People's Action texting. She did it earlier today. We're going to have it be part of something later on the day. So like, you can come in and dance and have a party and keep texting and keep phoning and doing whatever you're doing, but just join us in community and realize like we are really in this together, and find some ways to feel that way. And if go to mobilize.us. There are lots of ways in which to get involved. Literally hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to get involved. It's called Choose Your Own Adventure. You can put in the time, the date, where you want to do it, and it'll give you a whole bunch of ways to get involved the next 2 days. Please go do it. Choose Your Adventure on mobilize.us, or just go find my Facebook feed, which has like every 2 hours has a new opportunity. Please do this right now. So I will continue to do that for the next couple of days.
And iwillvote.com.
iwillvote.com. Absolutely.
Obama was promoting that, and so many great comments coming in. And Jonathan says intriguing and far-reaching show. And Rose has posted a link to the video, and folks, you can find it on her feed. You can find it on my feed as well. We'll let Anurima go. Thank you so much, and we wish you the very best. We wish this country the very best. It needs all the help it can get, and everyone. Don't stay on the sidelines. Take action. Make sure you vote and you help your friends and family. Everyone can make a difference. Anyone can make a difference. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll say bye-bye.